board will now come to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus, Alderwoman Flowers, Alderman Bosley, Alderman Moore, Alderwoman Hubbard, Alderwoman Ingrassia, Alderman Coatar, Alderman Conway, Alderman Ortmann, Alderman Vollmer, Alderman Villa, Alderman Arnowitz, Alderwoman Murphy, Alderwoman Howard, Alderwoman Green, Alderwoman Behringer, Alderman Rhodey, Alderman Kennedy, Alderwoman Davis, Alderwoman Spencer, Alderman French, Alderman Boyd, Alderman Vaccaro, Alderman Ogilvie, Alderman Cone, Alderman Williamson, Alderman Carter, Alderwoman Krewson, President Reed, Alderwoman Tyus, Alderwoman Flowers, Alderman Bosley, Alderman Moore, Alderwoman Hubbard, Alderwoman Ingrassia, Alderman Coatar, Alderman Conway, Alderman Ortmann, Alderman Villa, Alderman Arnowitz, Alderwoman Murphy, Alderwoman Howard, Alderwoman Behringer, Alderman Rhodey, Alderman Kennedy, Alderwoman Davis, Alderman Cone, Alderman Williamson, Alderman Carter, Alderwoman Krewson, 15 present.
Quorum being present, unless everyone in the chambers and galleries is able to stand, please rise for prayer. Giving all honor to God, Almighty God, source of all authority, we humbly ask guidance in our deliberations and wisdom in our conclusions. Amen. We dispense with line item 3, introduction of honored guests. Any introduction of honored guests? Alderman from the 23rd.
President, members of the board, I'd like to have as my special guests, and I'm sure I'm leaving people out, from the Carpenters Union, Jeff Hans, Todd Hake, Keith Taylor, and Marvin Sanders. From the Plumbers, I see Mike Grady over there, and I'm sorry if I don't see anybody else standing there. And I'll come over. From Fire, Percy Green, and from Fire Local 73, Al.
Alderman from 13th.
Honored guests Mary Pat Carl and Rachel Smith from the Circuit Attorney's Office.
Alderwoman from the 14th.
Good morning, Mr. President. I would like to welcome Gary Otten from Painters District Council 2 and Demetrius Alfred from Firefighters Local 73.
Alderman from 22nd.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the board. I'd like to have my honored guests today, Mr. Chris Pickle and Leroy Grant with AT&T, and Ms. Stephanie Robinson with Ameren, Missouri.
Any further introductions? Alderman from 16th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I don't have my glasses on. I have special guests today, Anthony Lancia with the AGC. I have Mary Pat Carl, who is a 16th Ward resident with the with the Attorney's Office, and with the Plumbers and Pipe Fitters, Frederick Searcy Jr. Thank you.
Alderman from the 9th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'd like to have for my honored guest today, Martina Johnson from the St. Louis Association of Realtors.
Any further introductions? Any further introductions? We will dispense with line item. Well, approval of the minutes, there aren't any. Report of city officials.
Report of city officials can be found in sections A, B, and C of the agenda and have been placed in all aldermen's mailboxes. I have from his honor the mayor the following correspondence. Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individuals for appointment to the Great Rivers Greenway District. The reappointment of Mr. Neil Perriman, who resides in the 16th Ward and whose term will expire on January the 1st, 2019. I respectfully request your approval of this appointment. Sincerely, Francis G. Slay, Mayor, City of St. Louis.
Alderman from the 9th, you recognize on the mayor's appointment to the Great Rivers Greenway District.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move we accept the mayor's appointment.
Moved by the Alderman from the 9th, seconded by the Alderman from the 25th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individuals for appointment to the Westminster Lake Special Business District. The appointment of Corey L. Jones, who resides in the 28th Ward and whose term will expire on December the 31st, 2018. I respectfully request your approval of this appointment. Sincerely, Francis G. Slay, Mayor, City of St. Louis.
Alderman from the 28th, you recognize on the mayor's appointment to the Westminster Lake Special Business District.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I move to confirm the mayor's appointment of Corey Jones to the Westminster Lake Special Business District.
Moved by the Alderman from the 28th, and seconded by the Alderman from the 10th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That's the extent of report of city officials.
We dispense with line items 7 and 8. Would anyone like to take any bills off of any of our informal calendars? Would anyone like to take any bills off of any of our informal calendars? We dispense with line items 9 through 10. First reading, Alderman from the 22nd. You have something?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'd like to move to suspend the rules for the purpose of first reading Board Bill 280, which should be on all members' desks.
All right, it's been moved by the Alderman from the 22nd that we suspend the rules for the purposes of introducing Board Bill number 280 and entertain a second on that motion, seconded by the Alderman from the 12th. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus, Alderwoman Flowers, Alderman Bosley, Alderman Moore, Alderwoman Hubbard, Alderwoman Ingrassia, Alderman Coatar, Alderman Conway, Alderman Ortmann, Alderman Vollmer, Alderman Villa, Alderman Arnowitz, Alderwoman Murphy, Alderwoman Howard, Alderwoman Green, Alderwoman Behringer, Alderman Rhodey, Alderman Kennedy, Alderwoman Davis, Alderwoman Spencer, Alderman French, Alderman Boyd,
Aye.
Alderman Vaccaro, Alderman Ogilvy, Alderman Cone, Alderman Williamson, Alderman Carter, Alderwoman Krewson, President Reed,
Aye.
Alderwoman Tyus, Alderman Bosley, Alderwoman Ingrassia, Alderman Williamson, 25 aye votes.
By your vote, you stay in the motion. Alderman from the 22nd. And Madam Clerk, please place Board Bill number 280 at the end of first reading count.
So noted.
First reading Board Bills.
Board Bill 274, sponsored by Alderwoman Krewson, and ordinance recommended and approved by the Airport Commission, the Comptroller, and the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, making certain findings with respect to the transfer of up to $13,727,769 of excess monies that the city, the owner and operator of Lambert, intends to transfer from Debt Service Stabilization Fund to the Airport Revenue Fund, containing a severability clause and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 275 sponsored by Alderman Kennedy, an ordinance approving a redevelopment plan for 4500 and 4510 Delmar. Board Bill 276, sponsored by Alderman Vollmer, an ordinance approving a blighting study and a redevelopment plan for 2021-23 Marconi and containing a severability clause. Board Bill 277, sponsored by Alderwoman Ingrassia, an ordinance approving a redevelopment plan for 2821 Oregon. Board Bill 278, sponsored by Alderman Ortmann, an ordinance approving a redevelopment plan for 3328 Lemp. Board Bill 279, sponsored by Alderman Coatar, an ordinance pertaining to commercial semi-trailer trucks, also known as semis or tractor trailers, prohibiting such traffic during certain hours along Russell from the east boundary of 7th Street to the west boundary of Gravois, exempting from said prohibition emergency vehicles, including privately owned tow trucks, when providing emergency service to non-commercial vehicles, vehicles making deliveries to nearby addresses, and vehicles with gross vehicle weight of less than 26,000 pounds and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 280, sponsored by Alderman Boyd, an ordinance repealing Ordinance 69183 and making certain technical corrections, regulatory updates, and clarifications to the Firefighters Retirement Plan of St. Louis as set forth in Ordinance 69245 as amended by Ordinance 69353 as codified in Chapter 4.19 of the Revised Code of the City of St. Louis. That's the extent of our first readings.
Reference to committee.
To the Streets Committee, Board Bill 279. To the Transportation and Commerce Committee, Board Bill 274. To the Neighborhood Development Committee, Board Bill 276, 277, and 278. And to the Housing Committee, Board Bill 275. That's the extent of reference to committees.
Second reading.
The following board bill was reported out of the Ways and Means Committee. Board Bill 178, sponsored by Alderman Kennedy, an ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor and the comptroller to execute upon receipt of and in consideration the sum of $300 and other good and valuable consideration, a quitclaim deed to remise, release, and forever quit claim to Cassandra Griffin, certain city-owned property located in City Block 3709, which property is known by address 1029 North Spring. Board Bill 265, sponsored by Aldermen and Alderwomen Conway, Spencer, Flowers, Hubbard, Coatar, Vollmer, Villa, Arnowitz, Murphy, Howard, Green, Behringer, French, Boyd, Vaccaro, Ogilvy, Cone, Williamson, Carter, Krewson, and President Reed and Alderman Ortmann, an order submitting to the qualified voters the question whether to continue the earnings tax imposed by the city for a period of 5 years, providing for an election and the manner of voting thereat, providing that if such question shall receive the votes of a majority of the voters voting thereon, that such earnings tax shall continue, and containing a severability clause and an emergency clause. Board Bill 267, sponsored by Alderman Vaccaro, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing and directing the St. Louis Municipal Finance Corporation to issue and sell its Carnahan Courthouse leasehold revenue bonds, revenue refunding bonds, Series 2016A, in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $21 million in order to refund all or a portion of its outstanding Carnahan Courthouse leasehold revenue refunding bonds, Series 2006A, issued by the corporation in an original aggregate principal amount of $23,725,000 containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 268 as amended, sponsored by Alderman Ogilvy and Alderman Villa, an ordinance providing for directing the submission to the qualified electors at a special bond election to be held on the 5th day of April 2016 of a proposal for the incurring of indebtedness and issuance of bonds in an aggregate amount not to exceed $25 million upon the assent to the said proposal of 2/3 of the qualified electors and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 269, sponsored by Alderman Moore, an ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor and the comptroller to execute a quitclaim deed to Myrtle Hilliard Davis Comprehensive Health Centers Incorporated for a certain city-owned property located in City Block 3677, which property is described in Exhibit A. Upon receipt of and in consideration the sum of $1 and containing an emergency clause, and the following board bill was reported out of the Public Safety Committee. Board Bill 247, sponsored by Aldermen and Alderwomen Boyd, Kennedy, Bosley, French, Vaccaro, Cone, Carter, Coatar, Spencer, and Green, an ordinance authorizing and directing the Fire Commissioner to enter into and execute a grant agreement with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Federal Emergency Management Agency, Assistance to Firefighters Grant to fund the 2014 Fire Prevention and Safety Get Alarmed Program, and containing an emergency clause. That's the extent of our second readings.
Before we move forward, I was just passed a note that a colleague of ours, Alderman Williamson, his mother, passed away. So I want to ask everyone in the chambers and the galleries if you can please join me in a moment of silence for the passing of Thelma Williamson, the mother of our colleague, Frank Williamson. Thoughts and prayers are with the family and friends. Alderwoman from the 19th, would you like to?
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. I'd like to request that Board Bill 251, Committee Substitute, and Board Bill 252, Committee Substitute, be moved to the informal calendar for perfection consent.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that change.
So noted.
And also assign Board Bill number 280 to Public Safety.
So noted.
Dispense with line item 14, perfection consent.
Board Bill 226, sponsored by Alderman Moore, an ordinance approving a redevelopment plan for 4626 through 4670, 4625 through 4631, and 4647 through 4663 St. Ferdinand. Board Bill 233, sponsored by Alderwoman Hubbard, an ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission to change the zoning of property in City Block 6484 and 6585 from D, multiple family dwelling district, to G, local commercial and office at 1420 North 24th Street, and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 238, sponsored by Alderwoman Krewson, an ordinance approving a blighting study and a redevelopment plan for 5301 through 13, purging and containing a severability clause. Board Bill 245, sponsored by Alderman Conway, an ordinance approving a redevelopment plan for 4150 Shenandoah. Board Bill 250, sponsored by Alderwoman Spencer, an ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission to change the zoning of property from B, two-family dwelling district, and the F, neighborhood commercial district, to the F, neighborhood commercial district in City Block 1639 for property at 2748 through 54 Chippewa, and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 255, Committee Substitute, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis, an ordinance approving amendment to the Grand Center TIF redevelopment plan, removing certain property from the redevelopment area and containing a severability clause. That's the extent of perfection consent.
Alderman from the 18th, you recognize on the motion for the perfection consent calendar.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, I move for adoption of the perfection consent calendar.
Moved by the Alderman from the 18th, seconded by the Alderman from the 25th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We'll dispense with line item 16, third reading consent.
Board Bills 127, 191, and 249.
Alderman from the 18th, you recognize on the motion for the third reading consent calendar.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move for adoption of the third reading consent calendar.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 18th, entertain a second, seconded by the Alderman from the 11th. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Flowers. Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Hubbard, Alderwoman Ingrassia, Alderman Coatar, Alderman Conway, Alderman Ortmann, Alderman Vollmer, Alderman Villa, Alderman Arnowitz, Alderwoman Murphy, Alderwoman Howard, Alderwoman Green, Alderwoman Behringer, Alderman Rhodey, Alderman Kennedy,
Aye.
Alderwoman Davis, Alderwoman Spencer, Alderman French,
Here it is.
Alderman Boyd, Alderman Vaccaro, Alderman Ogilvy, Alderman Cone, Alderman Williamson, Alderman Carter, Alderwoman Krewson, President Reed,
Aye.
Alderwoman Tyus, Alderman Bosley, Alderwoman Ingrassia, Alderman Williamson. 26 aye votes.
By your vote, you sustain the motion. Alderman from the 18th and 3rd read and finally passed the aforementioned bills. We'll
That's the extent of third reading consent.
dispense with line item 18, report of enrollment.
Board Bills 127, 191, and 249.
All other business being suspended, the president shall in open session affix his signature hereto to the end that these may become law. I move for adoption of our courtesy resolution. Can I entertain a second on that motion? Seconded by the Alderman from the 18th. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. First reading resolutions.
We have none.
Second reading.
Following resolution was reported out of the Public Safety Committee, Resolution 144, sponsored by Alderman Boyd. The Board of Aldermen will continue to use its best efforts to be a disaster-resistant community by supporting and participating in the all hazard mitigation plan update. Alderman from the 22nd, you recognize on the second reading of resolution number 144.
Mr. President, members of the board would like to move for the adoption of resolution 144.
Moved by the Alderman from the 22nd. I entertain a second on the motion. Seconded by the Alderman from the 12th. Alderman from the 22nd, please proceed.
I renew my motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? It's been moved and seconded that we adopt resolution number 144. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Alderman, Resolution 165 as amended, sponsored by, you said Alderman Kennedy, pursuant to ordinance 67794, the Public Safety Committee hereby approves the recommendations of the Public Safety Committee for the appropriation of crime prevention program funds for fiscal year 2016.
Alderman from 18, you recognize to give the report on resolution 165 as amended.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, the Public Safety Committee met this past week in relationship to the allocations of the Prop S funding. On your desk is the resolution as well as the list of programs that were allocated. It does not require a vote by the board.
Yes, yes. Alderman from the first.
I thought we were going to vote on this, and I wanted to speak to opposition I have of some granting of the money in this particular resolution. So if it doesn't require a vote, then I'm inappropriate, and I don't have a say.
Okay, thank you. Miscellaneous unfinished business.
We have none.
Announcements.
Monday, the office is closed, Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Tuesday, neighborhood committee meeting at 9 a.m. in the Kennedy Room. Neighborhood Development Committee meeting at 9 a.m. in the Kennedy Room. Wednesday, Ways and Means Committee meeting at 9 a.m. in the Leisure Room. Friday, full board meeting, 10 a.m. in the chambers. That's the extent of my announcements.
Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderman from the 8th?
Mr. President, let's see. Anybody has a bill that's been assigned to the Ways and Means Committee, please let Donna know that you want it heard this Wednesday or next Wednesday. Thank you.
All right. Alderman from the 10th, in our haste to start the meeting, we skipped you this morning. Did you, Alderman from the 10th? In our haste to start the meeting this morning, we skipped you at the beginning. Do you have anything you'd like to share with us?
Quite all right. I wasn't awake. I didn't even know you skipped over me. But thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. And I actually do have a special guest today. He's late in arriving. I just had to make sure he knew where he was. But today is January 15th. It is National Hat Day for you folks that love hats. But more importantly, this is the day in 1974 when Happy Days premiered on TV, thus changing the Alderman from the 23rd's life forever. He still thinks he's Fonzie. But my guest today is the one, the only, Mr. Fred Wessels.
Welcome, Fred. All right. Any further announcements? Any further announcements? All the one from the 19th, sorry.
And members of the board. I wanted to share with you, and many of you may not have had an opportunity to look at your email, but we're going to have a free concert at the St. Louis Symphony on February 3rd. The importance of it is for you to share this information with your neighborhood residents. We'd like to see our community use the Powell Symphony Hall more. We'd like for them to understand the music better. It's not just all concert music. And so it is a free concert with refreshments afterwards, and we will also provide them with an opportunity to come to another one later on in the year. So to me, all arts is very important, and most especially for the young people in our community to have that exposure. So hopefully you'll pass it through your networks. All they have to do is email in their reservation. We're not selling tickets. We're not passing out tickets. We just need to know how many people are coming so we know when to cut the list. But I'm really happy that the president of the symphony is doing this with the outreach, and I hope more facilities do the same. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I have to thank you for reaching out to the symphony every year to make sure that they do those things. And it has really helped, I think, the community at large. You working to make sure the symphony is open and reaching out to people all across the city. Yes. So thanks for continuing to do that.
Mr. President, I should have said, in order to encourage some people to come, many of you all know Brian Owens, who is a local entertainer here. Absolutely. But he will be doing Curtis Mayfield music with the symphony. So hopefully that will encourage some people to show up. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further? Alderman from 20th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to announce that this Saturday, local nonprofit Southside Forever is working with our local fire department to give out 100 coats in the Dutchtown Graveway Park neighborhood at our local rec center, Marquette Park. And so if anybody has any additional coats you want to add to the mix, we'll be giving those out tomorrow afternoon.
All right, thank you. Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Also, just announced City Hall will be closed Monday in recognition of Martin Luther King holiday. Alderman from the 18th, you recognize on the motion to excuse. Alderman from the 18th, you recognize on the motion to excuse.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move that the Alderman from the 3rd, 6th, and 26th be excused for necessary absence.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 18th. Entertain a second on that motion. Seconded by the Alderman from the 11th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Alderman from the 18th, you recognize on the motion to adjourn.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move that the board adjourns until Friday, January 22nd, 10 a.m.
Moved by the Alderman from the 18th, seconded by the Alderman from the 13th. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.